All right, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Marcel Cruzado, and I am the graduate assistant for the Troche Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. For those of you who don't know, we are located on the second floor of the Lee Business School, and we are responsible for activities from overseeing entrepreneurship curriculum to conducting entrepreneurship research, and we even host a wide selection of events each semester for you all to participate in. These range from etiquette courses we're hosting this semester to a leadership development series with entrepreneur Kristen Hadid, and we also are hosting a monthly book club Q&A for where entrepreneurs like wrote the book, and then we have a Q&A at the end of the month where they come in and answer any questions that you guys have. And if you are here today, you probably already know that we are sponsoring and co-hosting a pitch competition with UNLV DECA and IMA. So if you are interested in any of these events, please feel free to email us at entrepreneurship@unlv.edu. I'll leave the email in the chat, and you can also RSVP for any of these events through Startup Tree. So now I will pass it over to Colin Ermai to talk about the pitch competition. Colin, I think you're muted.
I apologize. So my name is Colin Ermai. I'm the president of UNLV Collegiate DECA. And for those of you that were not at the information session, the pitch competition is this event that we're hosting, and it will consist of 2 tracks. So for track 1, it will be open to all UNLV students who have a business idea to pitch. You can be up into a team of 2. And so you will basically pitch your whole pitch will be based on how creative the idea is, how marketable that idea is, and then why should the panel of judges invest in you. And then on track 2, it will be open to all Lee Business School student organizations. And so it'll be pitched around the purpose of your student organization, what you're proud of, and how your organization will use the funds that you win. And so you'll be able to win. First place on both tracks will win $500, second place $250, and then third place $100. And so as you can see right here, this is the timeline that we have for the competition. So after today's event, this workshop, we will have the qualifying round will happen on Monday, March 22nd at 11:59 p.m. You'll be able to submit your video, which you can get more information on, like we said, if you email the entrepreneur, the Troche Center. And then the finalists from the qualifying round will be announced on Friday, April 9th at 12 p.m. And then finally, the virtual pitch competition. So any finalists will compete live on April 23rd between 4 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. That's all from me. So I'll pass it over to Professor Detken so we can begin this awesome workshop.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, just may start by introducing myself to you. My name is Professor Detken. I've been here at Lee Business School for about the past 3 years. And before that, I was able to teach and train really business leaders across the nation, not only in leadership development, leadership skills, but also this conversation we're having today, which is how do you present and communicate with confidence and skill and power. But I'm really excited to be with you here today and hopefully sort of impart some things that will really help make your pitch an absolute success. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And as we do, we're going to get going into really this conversation that we're having about communication. And as I start, I just want to, you saw that on the screen, I just want to start by kind of sharing a mantra that I have, a belief system that I live by. And that is this, you can see it on your screen. And that is that good communication, whether verbal or written, good communication starts with the presenter, not with the presentation. Here's what I mean by that. What I mean is it's not about just having the most perfect, interesting, creative content. Content is important, and you will learn that. It's not just about having the most well-designed slide deck. These slide decks are important, but good communication, a powerful presentation, a powerful pitch starts with a powerful presenter and not the other way around. In fact, as we start, I want to show you this TED Talk. It's short, it's about 3 minutes. But here's the thing. What I love about this TED Talk is that this gentleman who you're going to see presenting here in a minute is presenting on what I believe is probably the most ordinary, the most boring, the most, routine topic in the world. And yet, because he is a powerful and confident and skilled presenter, he engages his audience. He resonates with them. He captures their attention and holds it the whole way through. Again, not because his content is exciting, but because he is a powerful presenter. In fact, here's how I want us to start this workshop. And if you know me, if you've taken my classes before, or if you're gonna know me now, I'm an interactive sort of communicator. I have a firm belief that we learn better when we learn together. And so I would love it if you guys would interact with me during this workshop. So you can chat me during this workshop. You can unmute yourself when I ask a question. So as we start, here's how the question I'm going to ask that you kind of think about as you watch this TED Talk. And that is this. When you watch this TED Talk, what does he do that allows him to really resonate, capture, and engage his audience? What does he say? What does he do? How does he do it? So be thinking of that question as you watch it. And then I'm going to ask for your feedback at the end. So watch this video and then we'll chat about it at the end.
I'm used to thinking of the TED audience as a wonderful collection of some of the most effective, intelligent, intellectual, savvy, worldly, and innovative people in the world. And I think that's true. However, I also have reason to believe that many, if not most of you, are actually tying your shoes incorrectly. Now, I know that seems ludicrous. I know that seems ludicrous. And believe me, I lived the same sad life until about 3 years ago. And what happened to me was I bought what was for me a very expensive pair of shoes, but those shoes came with round nylon laces and I couldn't keep them tied. So I went back to the store and said to the owner, I love the shoes, but I hate the laces. He took a look and said, oh, you're tying them wrong. Now, up until that moment, I would have thought that by age 50, one of the life skills that I had really nailed was tying my shoes, but not so. Let me demonstrate. This is the way that most of us were taught to tie our shoes. Now, as it turns out, thank you. Oh, wait, there's more. As it turns out, there's a strong form and a weak form of this knot. And we were taught to tie the weak form. And here's how to tell. If you pull the strands at the base of the knot, you can see that the bow will orient itself down the long axis of the shoe. That's the weak form of the knot. But not to worry. If we start over and simply go the other direction around the bow, we get this, the strong form of the knot. And if you pull the cords under the knot, you will see that the bow orients itself along the transverse axis of the shoe. This is a stronger knot. It will come untied less often. It will let you down less. And not only that, it looks better. We're going to do this one more time. Start as usual. Go the other way around the loop. This is a little hard for children, but I think you can handle it. Pull the knot. There it is, the strong form of the shoe knot. Now, in keeping with today's theme, I'd like to point out, and something you already know, that sometimes a small advantage someplace in life can yield tremendous results someplace else. Live long and prosper.
All right. So again, in your chat box, you can unmute yourself. What did he do that allowed him to communicate? Again, here's the thing. If someone came up to you and said, you're going to pitch your 3-minute pitch on how to tie your shoes, you would look at them and think they were ridiculous, right? Because it's an ordinary thing. It's not exciting at all. And yet he does some very powerful things that allow him to engage and connect and resonate with his audience. So in your chat box or unmuting yourself, what did he do that allowed him to do that? What did you notice? Can you talk to me? Okay, so Brian says he used humor and a demonstration to drive engagement. Absolutely, Brian. Used humor right off the bat. Angel said was relatable. That's right. He used his own personal story, right? He told a story about his own journey going into the shoe shop and kind of that conversation, what happened. Jason said he used a visual aid. Yep, he used a prop. He showed his audience what he was talking about. Vanya said he had a story first. That's right, Vanya. Again, I said that. Yeah, he did some great things. What else do you guys get? He gave advantages. Yep, I loved that part. Did you notice in that TED Talk? He said, listen, here's the benefits to you as my listener. It's going to stay longer. It's going to last longer. It's going to look better, right? And he reiterated it at the end. At the end, that's right. He kind of, again, told his audience why this mattered. You guys are great. I love the comments. Keep it coming. Had a simple example to push the idea of a complex concept. Right on, Angel. That's exactly right. He didn't overcomplicate it, right? He didn't try to, draw all these diagrams. He didn't try to, kind of make it bigger than he was. He was simple. He was authentic. It was genuine. He got to the point and he stuck to the point in a really relatable way. One of the things that I always like about that TED Talk when I watch it is that he also compliments his audience at the beginning. I don't know if you caught that, but he started by saying, TED Talk audience is one of the most, lively, intelligent, smart group of listeners, right? He compliments them right at the very beginning. He gains their attention. And again, it goes to show just that point that I started this whole workshop off with, which is this, that good communication, great pitches, great presentations. They don't start with content. Again, most ordinary content in the world. It starts with a powerful, skilled, confident presenter. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today, are 3 steps to really prepare to deliver a really powerful pitch. 3 steps that will allow you to really develop a powerful 3-minute pitch. And here's step 1. And that is to rock the first 30 seconds. The very first step to deliver a really great 3-minute pitch is to rock that first 30 seconds. Here's what I mean by that. I mean really making that first 30 seconds of your pitch count. In pitch language and pitch world, that is prime real estate. And the first 30 seconds is the thing that will allow you to set the tone for your presentation, for your pitch, engage your audience, and make them want to lean in and listen to what you are going to say. And so one of the most important things you can do as you're thinking about delivering this powerful 3-minute pitch is think about that first 30 seconds and how you will rock that first 30 seconds. In fact, I want to give you 5 of the most common ways to rock that first 30 seconds. And I am going to share it to you under the acronym of CATCH, right? CATCH, because hopefully you really want your audience to catch, there you go, what you're doing. And so, and what you're saying and the power behind what you're saying. And so I'm going to give you this acronym CATCH, but really these are just 5 of the most common ways that you can capture your audience's attention and really make that first 30 seconds of your pitch count. Now, let me just say, this is not an exhaustive list. There are lots of ways you can do this, but these are just 5 of the kind of the most common ways. And there's not one right way. It will depend on your purpose. It'll depend on your audience. It'll pitch on your pitch itself. But here's some 5 ways that you can really make the first 30 seconds of your pitch stand out. And the very first thing you can do, the C stands for make a claim, right? One of the best ways you can really capture your audience's attention is to make a big, bold, declarative claim at the beginning of your pitch. In fact, the TED Talk we just watched, that's what he did, right? He said, I'm used to thinking of the TED audience as smart, talented, funny, all those kinds of things. However, I believe that most of you are tying your shoes wrong, right? He made this claim at the very beginning of his talk, which people went, okay, that's intriguing. Why? Why do you believe that? Okay, tell me more. And what a claim does is it really intrigues your audience. It kind of starts a question that makes your audience want to lean in and learn more about the solution to that problem or that question that you're bringing up. So that's the first way. Start with a big, bold claim. And the second one, the A in the acronym CATCH, is ask a question. Here's another way. One of the most common ways is to simply ask a question of your audience. How many of you, what's the worst thing? What if blah, 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 blah. Again, there's no one right question. The idea here is that you really want to engage your audience so that they're starting the presentation, the pitch, not just being a listener. Now with a question, you've immediately invited them into the presentation, and now they're a participant with you. And so a great way to start, ask a question. Here's the third way to really catch their attention, to really capture your audience's attention, and to really rock that first 30 seconds. And that's to tell a story. A lot of you guys mentioned that in the chat box. So that's one of the things the TED speaker did really well, is he told a story. And here's the thing. You can see it on the screen, but there's no sell without the story. And here's what business marketers, business professionals have learned over the course of history. And that is this, that stories translate when nothing else will. Why? Because our brains have been hardwired for stories. I mean, if you go back, in decades and decades and centuries ago in history, when most of the world were not literate, the way that people pass down lore from generation to generation, the way that people pass down values and thoughts and ideas and concepts was not through writing them down, was through the power of story. And story is what will connect an audience to a presenter, a speaker, quicker and more unifying than anything else. And so if you can find a way to bring your problem, right? Because pitches are all about a problem and a solution. If you can figure out some way to bring your problem or your solution to life with a story, you will capture your audience in a way that nothing else will. In fact, I want to show you a commercial that I think does a great job of bringing to life a problem, right? Because when you bring a problem to life for your audience, all of a sudden now they're able to walk in the shoes of that problem. They're able to feel it, to feel the tension of it, to feel the life of it. And now whatever solution you present to them after you've let them walk in that problem, man, it's going to be so much more powerful to them because they've walked it, they lived it. So I want to show you this commercial. And again, I want you to tell me what problem this commercial is bringing to life. Now, again, no words are mentioned in this commercial. You never hear any words, just music and acting on a screen. And yet, my guess is you'll walk away very clearly understanding the problem that this commercial is trying to bring to life. So watch this real quick.
Wake up, you've got the dreamer's disease. So polite, you're busy still saying please. But when the night is falling, you cannot find the light. You feel your dreams are dying. Hold tight. You've got the music in you. Don't give up. The world is gonna pull through. The world is gonna pull through. You've got the music in you. Ooh.
All right, so what problem did that commercial bring to life? What do you think? You can unmute yourself, you can chat me. What problem did that story bring to life? Anybody know?
Yes. Well, actually, I mean, myself, I work full time. I attend law school part time. So the challenge of actually give your best at work, but also to attend class that if, let's say, I mean, yeah, you're arriving maybe a few minutes late and the professor will not understand that, hey, I work and I go to school. So it is hard, so that's, I think that challenge of part-time students.
Yeah, that's great. That's absolutely right. And how much even better that you resonated. That's your own personal story as well.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that story spoke to you because that's something you personally walked through, that so many people have. Angel says here in the chat box, not having time for school due to work, working adults facing difficulty attending traditional college, as Brian was saying. That's exactly right. Now, here's the thing. Here's the reality, is that story in 60 seconds told a story to its audience that everyone walked away with that same story, right? So again, every single person, every single one of us who just watched that commercial in a matter of 60 seconds without words, we all walked away being unified, all understanding the same concept, all understanding the same emotion, all understanding the same narrative. And as a result, that one commercial in 60 seconds could move a group of people towards a certain outcome. That's the power of a story. And if you can figure out a way in a very concise, short, right, because it's just 30 seconds, making that first 30 seconds count. If you can share a story that brings your problem to life, one that immediately connects your audience, brings them in unified stance, brings them all on the same page, then what you have is a captive audience. And now they're thirsty for your solution, because now they've walked through it. And most likely, like you just said, if it's their part of their story too, now they're even more desperate for your solution because they understand it. That's resonating deep within them. So again, it's just another tool in the rocking the 30 seconds, game, but it's a very powerful one. And if you can find a way to incorporate story, do it every day, all day long as you can keep it short. Because nothing is probably more powerful than telling a powerful story to connect you and your audience together. Okay, the last two parts of this acronym, after a claim, after asking your question, after telling a story, the next C in this acronym of really how to rock that first 30 seconds is to be creative. And this could really speak to any sort of creative element. It could be a video, an image, a song, right? Anything that really kind of helps set up in a creative way, bring life to your problem, to your solution, to your pitch. I was part of a pitch competition once where someone was interacting their product with the Vegas Golden Knights. And the way that they began their pitch was they literally played the Vegas Golden Knight music. I don't know if you have any Vegas Golden Knight fans out there, but they really played that Vegas Golden Knights music as they walked out onto the stage. And then they had us all chant, "Go Knights, go," which is what you do at games. Immediately, the whole room was engaged with them. The whole room was connected through this common creative form. So maybe that's a way for you to engage your audience. And here's the H. The H is humor. And again, that's why so many commercials use humor. So many people stand up and start with humor because laughter seals the deal. And humor is a great vehicle for capturing your audience's attention. And again, these are just 5 of the most common ways. There's other ones. There might be better ones for your pitch coming up. But again, it all goes back to that early and that first step, which is to rock the first 30 seconds, because that is where you set the tone for your pitch, you engage your audience, and you make them want to lean in and listen all the way through. So that's the first step, is to rock the first 30 seconds. Here's step 2 to a powerful, confident, and creative pitch. And that is to rehearse, revise, and repeat. Right? Rehearse, revise, repeat. So step 1 is to rock that first 30 seconds. Step 2 is to rehearse, revise, and repeat. These are 3 critical steps that you need to take if you want to really make your pitch powerful, concise, and compelling. So, couple questions. The first question is this: what should be rehearsed? That's the first question. Okay, so when I'm rehearsing, what should I rehearse? Now, there's many things you can rehearse. Here's a couple of the biggest things to rehearse as you're preparing to present your pitch virtually, which is, I know, how the pitch competition is going to go this semester. So the first thing is hands. You need to rehearse what to do with these things. And why? Because presenters get up in the front of the room, and although they'll use their hands in normal everyday language all the time, all of a sudden they get up in front of people and these things become these weird things they don't know what to do with. And especially as it relates to being online, they don't know what to do with them. And so what do most presenters do online? They just don't use them at all. And yet, if you don't use them, you're missing out on one of the very keys to powerful presentations, because your hands enhance everything that you're saying. So again, let me hear from you. From your time in the workplace, in your academic journey, in your career journey, what have you learned not to do with your hands during a presentation? What have you learned? I mean, you guys have learned some stuff. You guys are smart. You guys are talented. What have you learned not to do? You can chat me. You can unmute.
Can I share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's like a box that you have to like confine yourself in when you're using expressions with your hands. Like I can't go up here,
Right.
or over here. I have to be in the box.
That's
And
right.
if my hands are super clammy, I can just clasp them and like fidget with my thumbs, like very stealthily fidget with my thumbs. If I'm like I can't really, be expressive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you get nervous, yes, you can do that underneath. You just don't want to fidget up on top, right? Because then that it creates more drama and nervousness to your audience. So that's good, Nico. So you want to keep them in the box. That's great. And if you have to fidget where they can't see, right? So that's a good thing. You don't want to fidget on camera. That's really, really good because that conveys something to your audience that you don't want to convey. So Angel says, put them in your pocket. That's exactly right. You don't want to put them in your pocket if you're standing in front of a room. Now on camera, again, we can't see that necessarily, but in standing in front of a room, that's absolutely correct. Not to fidget with your hands. And Marcel said the same thing. Vanya says, the obvious, don't put them in your mouth. Well, that's good. Hopefully that's obvious to everyone. You don't want to, be biting your nails or doing those things. That's exactly right. In fact, again, so a lot of you guys mentioned this. Here's the things we should not do with our hands. We shouldn't cross our hands, right? Because that makes us smaller. And when you're presenting and you want to appear confident in front of your audience, the last thing you want to do is make yourself small. When you are weak, when you feel nervous, when you feel intimidated, we naturally as humans make ourselves be small. And so the very last thing you want to do is make yourself small, whether it's by crossing your hands, crossing your arms, putting them behind your back. The thing you want to do is make yourself wide and broad as much as you can, because that communicates confidence to your audience. So you don't want to do things like put your hands behind your back. You also never want to hold anything in your hands that isn't directly related to your presentation. So if you need to use a clicker to advance your slides, that's fine. That's directly and related to your presentation. If you need to hold some note cards in your hands, that's fine. That's directly related to your presentation. If you have a prop, like the shoe we looked at earlier, that's fine. You can hold that. It's directly related to your presentation. But anything that is outside of your presentation, a water bottle, a Coke can, a pencil, anything else, you should not be holding in your hands during your presentation because that distracts from the power of your message. Obviously, someone said this, don't put your hands in your pockets. And finally, don't fidget. A lot of times people who wear ties will fidget a lot with their ties. So be careful about fidgeting with your clothing or your suit jacket, right? A lot of times people will fidget with their hair. They'll do this, or they'll tap their fingers on their face, or they'll scratch their face, or they will even bite their fingernails, or they'll pick their fingernails. I see a lot of presenters picking their fingernails. So when we go on to present, and virtually it matters just as much, we need to make sure, like Nikki said, or Nico said, excuse me, we need to make sure our hands are in the box at all times. We need to make sure we're using them to communicate the power of our message. We're not just look like we're, statues and our audience never sees our hands the entire pitch. We need to bring them into the camera angle. We need to show them in our screen, but use them in a way that supports and helps the power of our message get across. Yes, Angel, you have a question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So in the circumstances that you're speaking to a room while you have your mask on and you're constantly putting up your mask, is that something that would be considered a distraction as well and that you want to get a better fitting mask? Or is it one of those things where we're kind of all in the same understanding that we're in this and it's normal at this point?
Right. Great question. The world of nonverbal communication has been blown up during the coronavirus because all of a sudden, half of the thing that we use to communicate to our audience is hidden by a mask. And so now we have to consider, how do we not only make that our new norm, like you said, Angel, but then also compensate with other things that we have at our disposal. So the short answer is, if you have to wear a mask, you have to wear a mask, right? Because we're being careful and cautious, and we care more about other people's health than we do necessarily about getting to show our full face in our presentation or in our, meeting that we're in. And so pulling up the mask, honestly, that's become norm. If you, yes, obviously we do want to have the best fitting mask, but that's not always possible for everyone because either of resources or because, you know, sometimes a tighter fitting mask makes them unable to breathe and maybe they have asthma issues or other health issues that, you know, will combat that. And so better fitting mask isn't really the key. It's understanding that we can, you know, it's just the normal that we're going to live in for a while. Hopefully we will come to a point in our soon future, maybe over the next year or two, where we won't have to wear that every time we're in public. But for now, that may be a thing we just have to learn. And then you need to compensate. So how do you compensate? Well, you still have eyes that are above your mask. So you need to do that. You need to compensate with your hands, which makes your hands even more important as you communicate the power of your message. And you have your voice. You have the vocal energy that you can convey to a room. And that is where the tone in which you talk is amplified tenfold. And so you cannot, if you have a mask on, which you said, like you said, muffled, you will have to be able to articulate clearly, but also make your tone even that much more animated and engaging, because you need to compensate for what people now can't see here with your tone. Does that help answer your question a little bit? Good? Awesome. Great question. Love it. So that's the first thing. What are we doing with your hands? Keep your hands in your shot, use them organically and strategically, like I'm doing right now. It's a little bit of a new learning because they're higher than they would normally be. And you don't want to be, you know, rigid like a robot and forced. That's weird. But you want to use them organically to kind of to continue to enhance what you're saying. Here's number 2. Facial expressions. We talked about that a little bit. You want to rehearse your facial expressions, because if you are or are not wearing a mask, now that we are confined to this box, this screen, as Nico said, this matters so much. In fact, there's 2 things that you can really do immediately that enhance and engage your audience with your face. Number 1, smile. And number 2, raise your eyebrows. Right? Raise your eyebrows. Something as simple as those 2 things add a ton of energy to your presentation. Now, I don't mean creepy, right? Where you're forced and kind of just staring at your audience. That's weird. Don't do that. But just slight smile, slight raise your eyebrows. All of a sudden now there's energy when you're speaking and talking to your audience. So that's a big one. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to do that. Sometimes it's hard for me to see. So you can talk, you can unmute yourself, or you can chat me and I can.
So
yeah,
I put in the chat that I have RBF. So
now excuse me, I don't know what that means. So can you?
Resting bean face.
Yes, that is huge, Nico. And I always tell my class I teach, I say, well, not that full term, but I do say, listen, everyone has a resting face. Some of your resting faces are better than others. So know what your resting face is, because oftentimes when you're concentrating about what you're going to say, you switch into resting face mode and it can communicate something to your audience that you don't want communicated. Like Nico said, that's really good, Nico. That's funny. And the final thing that you need to think about what can be rehearsed is vocal enthusiasm. And we talked about that a little bit, especially under a mask. But one of the questions I always tell people to ask themselves is this: if your audience can't see you, so if your audience could not see you, how excited would they think you are just by listening to your voice? In fact, one of the best tips I can give you is, as you're preparing for your pitch, record yourself. And then when you watch yourself back the first time, watch yourself back without screen. Like, walk away from your camera and just listen to yourself and see how you sound without watching yourself on screen. So if all someone did was hear you, what would they think about your presentation? Would they say, wow, she's excited, she's passionate, she's engaging, it's animated? Or would they go, man, that was the most monotone thing I listened to for the last 3 minutes? So listen to yourself and then take note on, do you need to add more variance to your pitch? Do you need to, speed up sometimes? And then pause to really bring in the weight of what you're trying to say. So again, think about those things as you're rehearsing, and those are the things that you should rehearse. And again, here's just a screen about some things that are, as far as vocal energy. Again, this is what we typically see when we look at a Zoom with the little boxes, right? We see people looking away. We see blank faces. We see bored faces. We see, hands being used inappropriately, or people touching their phones, or not using their hands at all. And again, yet you have the power to do something very differently. You can use your face to engage your audience and your hands to do the same thing. So that's the first thing. What should be rehearsed? Here's the second question. How should I revise? So once you rehearse, the second step is in that rehearse, revise, repeat is to revise. So how should you revise? Well, there's 4 ways. Number 1, practice privately. We already talked about that. Practice over and over privately. Videotape yourself and watch it back, both without watching yourself so you can see how you hear, but also watch the video back without sound, just to see what your nonverbals are communicating to your audience without your voice being attached to it. So practice privately. Number 2, practice publicly. And here's what I mean. Get other people's feedback. Do it in front of your roommate, your partner, a business colleague. Practice publicly, because you will perform differently publicly than you will privately. And so it's a great thing for you to do as you're practicing. Practice publicly. Third thing is practice as you mean to do it. Always practice as you mean to do it. And here's what I call this. I call this the marathon principle. Why? Well, early on in my life, I used to run, and I used to do a lot of half marathons. And one time I learned this principle when I was running a half marathon, that you should never do anything on race day, the day of your actual marathon, that you have not done many times over in practice. Why? Well, one time I bought these really kind of fancy pair of socks, running socks, and I was really excited. They were fancy, they were expensive. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to save these socks and put them on my marathon day and run my race with my new fancy socks on, which I did. But then I realized about mile 9 that they gave me the worst blisters, and I barely made it through the rest of the miles of that race. And I learned, again, a very valuable lesson, that you should never do something on race day that you've not done many times before in practice and training. Because if you don't, it could cause you, unforeseen circumstances that you aren't prepared to deal with, and it can throw off the power of your training day, of your race. The same is true for us presenters. You never want to do anything on presentation day that you have not practiced many times before in training. So if you have slides, practice advancing them well before. If you have a joke, practice it in front of people before presentation day, because there's nothing worse than throwing a joke out there and it's like flat, no one talks, and you're like, oh, that wasn't a very good joke, right? Anything you practice everything you're going to do. Practice as you mean to do it, because that will make sure that on the day of your presentation, on your pitch, you're most prepared to be successful. And then the final thing is prepare your space, is to practice and revise by preparing your space. Here's the thing. In virtual world, your space competes with what you're trying to say. That's a big truth about the season of life. What is behind you is competing just as much for what is coming out of your mouth. And so you need to make sure that the space, whatever the people are seeing behind you, does not compete for the power of what you're saying. So, for example, if you're you need to make sure that as you are revising, that you're in a well-lit, quiet space where you can speak, and there's nothing behind you, nothing around you is going to compete for attention. There's no kind of weird stuff going on in the background. So again, you need to prepare your space so that when you step up to present, everyone's just listening to you and they're not watching all that stuff that's going on behind you or around you. So that's how you should revise. And finally, how long should you repeat? So rehearse, revise, repeat. How long should we repeat? Listen, you need to practice and practice and practice and practice until you only need your notes 10% of the time. If you need your notes 10%, more than 10%, then you haven't practiced enough. You need to practice so you're not constantly looking down, because every time you look down, you disengage your audience. Every time you look down at your notes, you're missing out on that eye contact. Every time you look down, your audience is getting bored and they've stopped listening to you. So you only should use your notes about 10% of the time at the most. And so you need to practice and practice and practice and practice until you are at that goal. So that's the second step. And the third step, because I know we're here at time, is to remember the secret. So 3 steps to a great presentation. Number 1, rock that first 30 seconds. Number 2, rehearse, revise, repeat. Number 3, remember the secret. And here's the secret. Are you ready? The secret is to keep it simple. That is the big secret. Keep it simple. Here's the thing. All too often, presenters, people who are doing great pitches think that the more they add, the more that someone will be excited and want to invest with them. Here's the reality. That's absolutely untrue. The more simple, the more clear, the more 1.1 lane, one thought, the more powerful your pitch, your presentation will be. And here's how I always like to say it. It's at the bottom of your screen. And this is this. Remember, every word you add, whether it's to a presentation or a pitch, dilutes all the other words. It does. So every word must add significant value. It's like a big pot of chicken stock. If you just keep adding water and water and water, pretty soon it's going to just taste like water. It's going to taste like nothing. So remember, every word you add is diluting all the other words. So don't add anything unless it's absolutely crucial to your pitch. Less is always more, and it's always more powerful when you keep it simple. So those are the 3 kind of steps as we kind of think through how to craft a really compelling, concise, and clear pitch. Remember, rock that first 30 seconds, rehearse, revise, and repeat. And number 3, remember the secret, which is to keep it simple. So as we close, we have about a minute here. Just real quick, at a lot of times in my workshops, in my class, I always kind of end with this question to my listeners, to my students, to the other people in the room. And that is, today, what were things that was either new, a cue, or a to-do? Right? So here's what I mean by that. What's a new thought? Something maybe you've never heard before that you thought, that's a good thought. Like, I've never heard that before. That's a new thought that I really want to learn more about. Or maybe what's a cue? What's a question that you have that you want to end with today that you're like, I want to ask this follow-up question? Or a to-do. Something that maybe you've heard before, but you thought, wow, I really now understand it. I'm going to do this from this point forward in my life. So anybody have a cue or a to-do as we finish out our time here?
Well, I came in late.
Okay.
So I missed the first part, the first step. Something about keeping the first 30 seconds?
So the first step was rock that first 30 seconds. So basically make that first 30 seconds of your pitch count. And I think they recorded it, so you can go back and watch it. But I basically gave 5 ways to really capture the attention of your audience. So that's what the first one was. Good question, Nico. Somebody else. Okay, so I have Angel said something new was focusing on the first 30 seconds. Good, okay. And Nadine said the CATCH acronym. Yeah, that's a good one, just to kind of remember the ways we can really catch our audience. Anybody else? A cue, a to-do, a new?
Actually, a really quick question. So when Microsoft was first founded, it was Bill Gates that was going around and making all the pitches and things like that. Do you think that Microsoft would have been able to find success with just the fact that it was a quality product if it was, say, Paul Allen was the one doing the speeches?
Again, so much of that company's success, I think, is directly related to the presentation style, because it revolutionized the way that presentations were heard in the workplace, and it changed the way products were shared with the public, right? Because now all of a sudden it was like he broke the third wall, and it was no longer like they were just talking to the stakeholders or the people they thought deserved to have the information. They talked to the general public, and it changed the nature of really how companies engage with their public and have conversations with them that obviously have proved really beneficial. So that's mine. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of different experts who think different things, but for me, it's something that I've always looked at and researched because of the power of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it. Well, great. Well, thank you guys for your attention today. Hopefully this proved useful. I'm excited to hear about your pitches, your presentations, and know you're going to crush it. So thanks, y'all.
And just to end that, thank you Professor Detken, for that amazing presentation. We did record this session, so we will be posting it on Canvas. If you guys haven't been added to the Canvas page, we will add everyone who's RSVP'd. So if you were able to come and did an RSVP, just email us and we'll add you to the Canvas page. And I think that is all. Also, if you are interested in more of the Church Center's events, please feel free to email entrepreneurship@unlv.edu or RSVP through Startup Tree, which I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar about at this point. But thank you so much, Professor Detken. I think that's all. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you, Professor Detken. It was so nice to see you.
Hi, Vanya. It's great to see you